Well, welcome everybody. It's really a great pleasure for me to introduce Isla Hale, who is an amazing coach. She's someone I've worked with over the years and someone I've sent clients to, and someone whose work I've admired for a long time. And Isla, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate you giving your time to this program.
My pleasure. Really happy to be here.
Now, people should know that you coach a wide spectrum of people. You coach all kinds of people in all walks of life, people in corporate, people in education, other coaches. You coach quite well. But you have a specialty or something you're known for in that you also coach teenagers. And I thought that would be interesting to start there with you today. Most coaches I know, myself included, have kind of a no teenagers rule because we just can't handle it. I've had teenagers in my family, and my four children all became teenagers, and the thought of coaching a teenager really scares me. But I get afraid and intimidated. Most coaches are afraid to do it. I've had clients ask me if they would coach their teenager, and I usually fire them on the spot so I don't have to answer the question. But
So smart.
but you love it and you're good at it. So talk a little bit about what do you think it is about you that had you warm up to that process of coaching younger people and actually looking forward to it and enjoying the process. What do you think you do differently than most coaches when you think about the idea of coaching a teenager?
Yeah. Well, I was a very challenging teenager. Very, like, I like actually starting conversations with parents. Like, well, I drank a ton. I had sex way too early. I was really like kind of a rebel as a teenager in a way, but I was also highly motivated. I really wanted to be great at everything. I was a great basketball player and high GPA. Also, I felt suicidal at times, very depressed. I started meditating when I was 13, so I had this other side of me going on, waking up as well. So I felt really complex as a teenager, and something that really helped me was I started USM, the spiritual psychology program, when I was 19. And it wasn't so much that program, but it was being around people who weren't just identifying me as a problem or somebody that had great potential, but they were really identifying me as this I'm gonna get a little spiritual, I guess.
That's
Like,
okay. That's okay. Very welcome here.
yeah, like this really wise soul, and like started to reflect that back to me in that program. And I started working with a coach and a therapist kind of during that time, and it was so helpful for me to really be seen beyond all the labels and to be seen beyond all my behavior and even beyond my emotions, like that are so rampant during that time period. So it was, and I remember being at USM the first weekend, and how I felt was like, I want to create this for teenagers.
Hmm.
And not necessarily that program, but just that opportunity to like help a teen be seen for who they really are, kind of under it all. And how much I thrived in that environment. And I knew that could be a possibility for other teens.
Yes. And why do you think it's so hard for parents to see that in their own teenager, the wise soul behind all the acting out, behind all the fears and the emotions? Why is it difficult for a parent? Because I know a lot of parents say to you, I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know what to do next. Hopefully, you can help them. I don't know how you would do it, but here you go.
Yeah. It is such a common conversation I have with parents. And I feel like one of the places I look right away when I'm talking to a parent is I look in this space within them. And you have actually supported me a lot in this process of enrolling teens, where I'm really focused on serving a parent in the first conversation and really slowing that down. And where that conversation tends to go is I'm looking at really how much of this is the teenager uh, being the issue and how much of it is a parent being triggered by their teenager. And the conversation tends to go in this direction where what comes out of my mouth often is, do you feel like a failure as a parent if your kid is acting out, or are you holding it against yourself in some way if your kid isn't kind of lined up in this ideal trajectory, or that because they're missing school or drinking or smoking or having sex or what, all the stuff, are you holding it against yourself in some way? And so often, like, that's the thing that's going on in this deeper level that prevents a parent, I think, from seeing a lot of that behavior. It's not an indication that their kid is messed up. It's a ripple effect of something else going on. It's actually sometimes even with can I tell a little story?
Oh, yeah.
So I have the client. I've worked with him for about 3.5 years, and I started working with him on a Monday. I just remember the details very clearly because he had attempted suicide on a Saturday. And I don't usually work with people who are in like dire straits like that but I felt really called to talk to him, talk to his parents on Sunday, then I talked to him on Monday. And my conversation with him, I didn't I didn't know how it was going to go. I was just kind of willing to serve. A colleague recommended them to me. And I talked to him, and his what had happened in the weeks prior was his parents were really thinking that he was addicted to video games, which is so common also. um, and yet what had happened is they had cut him off completely of all internet the week prior. And he just had so much stuff bubbling up and he didn't have that outlet. And it was like how I see it now. And it was, it was his wisdom kicking in, guiding him to do something that helped his mind relax. Video games. I mean, it feels like this taboo thing, but when I looked at it, it was like, oh, like that's your coping mechanism.
Hmm.
That's your wisdom. You don't have another resource inside of you that you're awake to yet to know there's another place to experience peace or there's another way, but that's great. Like that's better than cocaine or like I mean on the scale of what you could be doing, that's pretty great. And I talked to his parents about that after my session with him. It was like, hey, what if you drop the idea that that's wrong in some way and see it as his wisdom really guiding him? And not to say I'm not an advocate for like video games all the time, but in this case, what I could see is there was something more going on behind the scenes. And his parents, I talked to them a lot because they were in total distress. Like, we messed up our kid. Like, and our kid, we already thought he was kind of flawed because he played video games 6 hours a day. And just to give them a different perspective, that's like, no, your kid is actually brilliant and so wise and so resilient. And I've worked with him for about 3.5 years now, and he's in college and just happy and content and has learned other ways of helping himself relax. But yeah,
So,
I don't know if that answered your question at all,
yeah,
Steve.
no, it's great because I think we can apply this across the board. Is that there's an element when you connect to someone and you're known for creating some rapport and trust in the teenager, so the teenager actually wants to talk to you again in a coaching program. Um, and a lot of that is coming from non-judgment or not immediately giving a societal judgment on what someone is doing. How important is a coach being non-judgmental in the early process of enrolling someone in or your early sessions with a client?
Yeah. I say this a lot. I actually just got finished doing a 4-week program for people that wanted to work with teens. And this feels like something I said over and over again, that it's like me coaching teenagers has made me a better coach for everybody across the
Mm,
board,
mm,
because I they don't care how impressive I am. Like, they don't care how much I know. I love this quote. Um, gosh, it's not coming to my brain. It's, oh, Theodore Roosevelt. It's like, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
wow, I love that.
I love it too, and it's like this guidance system for me in the initial conversations with parents and teens, being in it with them, like being very human, very authentic, not trying to be a coach even in a way. It's like my intention is to be helpful and to be in service, but it's more about building that relationship where they know I'm not in it to try to fix them. In fact, just the opposite in a way. It's I like I got to sit in on this day-long session with Robert Holden for the USM coaching program. I was there for the week he was there, and he talked a lot this whole day about moving from this self-improvement orientation to self-acceptance. And I feel that, like, that's been kind of medicine for my soul when working with you or Michelle or Carolyn. It's like really knowing I don't need to fix myself, and sitting with somebody that's seeing me neutrally and even slightly toward the like a positive orientation a little bit, it's healing. And I know with a teenager, I love getting to sit with them and say, like, whatever's going on for you, like, I've probably gone through it, and probably worse than you're going. Like I handled it more, I handled it in a worse way than you're handling it. Like, just kind of being really real and really taking the judgment off, that there's not this. I think with being a coach, there can be this idea that, like, we have it all together all the time and always have. I love breaking that down. And especially one of the things that I feel like has made me a better coach with my adult clients is being more human with them and being more vulnerable, sharing more of my stories. I just listened to your Alex Mill interview.
Mm.
I loved it so much. But you at the beginning said something like, I'm going to stop talking about myself. You said something kind of off the cuff. And I thought, like, you know what? I love hearing coaches talk about themselves, because it's a way of just like evening the playing field. We're all kind of in it together.
Yes, and a lot of coaches, especially at the beginning, I know with me at the beginning of my career, the urge is to look impressive and look like I'm wise enough and smart enough and have all of this superior wisdom. So otherwise, why would you pay me?
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, as you get more skilled at enrolling people in, creating rapport first, and creating a sense of understanding first, having that be primary, um, that goes away. And the idea
Mm-hmm.
of trying to be impressive, actually, if you really look, when I look, that would actually make it harder for people to sign up at the beginning. Wow, I can see why you're
Yeah.
such a great coach. You've written these books or whatever, and I have to get back to you. I don't know if I can afford you. But there's an element in that prospective client of this guy seems like he's so superior to me that I'm going to feel judged
Yeah.
during this coaching process, that's going to be painful. And you
Yeah.
start right out with no, there's no judgment here. There's nothing that I would judge you about. And I think that's so vital.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
So
it's everything when it comes to teenagers also.
yeah,
Just a little, you asked me in the beginning, what's the difference if there is one? And I'd say like the willingness to be really humble, that it's not working against me to be humble and to be authentic. It's actually working in my favor to connect, which is the whole point. It's everything.
yes.
Yeah.
So what else have you learned from working with teenagers that carries over to working with your older clients? You mentioned self acceptance, and I know with a lot of older clients, they think, wait a minute, if I accept myself, I won't improve and I'll fall behind. And that's self compassion. I'll get complacent. I won't achieve, and I need to achieve to be okay. How do you get older people to see the value of being okay with who they are and then moving on from there?
Yeah. Hmm. Such a good question. I love it. I do talk about this is I actually shared this recently on my Facebook page. It was a memory popped up of a dog that I had for 10 years. And she was I got her when I was 19, and she was like my first daughter. And she'd always do this thing where take we'd go on these long walks, and she'd take a squeaky ball, and she would like throw it down the most treacherous hill, and then she'd try to get it, and she wouldn't be able to get it, and she wouldn't leave it. And I'd always like find myself running down the hill after the ball so we could carry on. And it was like I spent years working with her on that behavior. Like, you can bring your ball, but only if you keep it on the track, and only if you take it with you. And I'd have like a clicker. I was really trying to improve her way of being, her behavior. And I remember having this insight. It was about 6 months before she died, and I had this feeling of like, wow, this is the thing. And she did it this one day on a walk. Like, this is the thing I'm going to remember about her, with like so much love and fondness, and it'll make me laugh. And it usually made me laugh. And I had that moment of like, wow, like I could just love this creature how she is. It's that quirkiness, it's like unproductive what she was doing. We weren't like getting where we needed to go, but there was something in that experience that, again, I'm talking about it now. She passed away in 2012. That I saw something in her that's like, that's what makes her Daphne. Like, that's what makes her unique. And she wasn't made wrong. And I like having that awareness of her. And she passed away about 6 months after that. And those 6 months with her, every time she did, I'm like, yes, Daphne, I'm getting more exercise. Thank you. And like, wow, look at, I'm seeing the edge of this cliff I would have never seen. And I had this whole other relationship to it. And I feel like that's a similar insight around, like, what if we're not made wrong? Like, what if we're not really, like, I don't have this thing where I don't like using coasters. And for a really long time, it was like watch myself put the cup down next to the coaster. Like, come on, Isla, get it together, put it on the coaster. And at some point, and I use coasters when it occurs to me. But when I don't, I'm like, oh, that's the thing that somebody's going to talk about me, like at my funeral. Like, Isla could just never use those coasters. And not to, and I know this in a bigger way. It's like people deal with not feeling productive or not feeling professional enough, and kind of all these other, there's bigger implications I know than coasters. But what I see in that is coming from this place of like, I don't have to change who I am to be okay. That's not, in my mind, productive in any way. I do have the ability to make different choices. I do have that ability. That's kind of part of the system, this intelligence that's in me. I'm not fixed. My personality's not fixed. My behaviors aren't fixed. My patterns, like, I'm like free to do what I really want to do and create what I want. But coming from a place of, it's not because I need to improve on who I am to be more lovable or to be more even successful. That's a nice place to come from. Makes it
Yeah.
all easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I remember once you spoke to a group of people in the ACS. You asked if anyone was interested in the subject of coaching teenagers. I was surprised at how many people were, and you had a big circle of chairs around you after our class was over. And what did you tell them? How did you open up? What was your message to them? And when you work with other people, you have groups on coaching teenagers. What's your first message?
Well, to be very honest, I just ask them what they really want to know. I don't ever start from anywhere necessarily. It's like, and this is, I guess, my classic enrollment process or my way of serving is to go in with, I don't know what would serve, so I'm going to ask. And
Yeah.
I know a few of the things that came up right away were what it was around how to be with really challenged teenagers, like teenagers that are suicidal, depressed. That comes up a lot. And I feel, and on kind of just a general way of addressing that, it is, I don't feel afraid of anything. Like I don't feel, what I mean by that is if there's a threat, if there's something going on, I'm going to talk to a parent and be like, call the police, take them to the, like, do something, do whatever occurs to you, parent. Like, this, handle this. But if they're talking, if a teen is talking about something that's going on that feels really hard or challenged, I'm aware what a privilege it is to be somebody that they're talking to about it. I'm aware of, like, in my mind, it's like there's nothing that they could be going through as a human that they can't rise from or they can't handle, so to speak. Like they have this wisdom in them, they have this guidance in them. There's nothing, like I say this a lot too. I don't, wisdom doesn't have any age. It's not like it kicks in when you're 30. I know. Like it's, it's in the system. It's made, we come in with it. So I don't feel this pressure to like fix them, but I do feel this opportunity to hold with them in whatever they're going through without fear that it's bigger than them, whatever they're up against. It's like I know that they're bigger than whatever might be going on, or they have a resource system that's so equipped to handle it. And coming from that place, it feels, again, I feel more relaxed. I'm not afraid of whatever somebody might bring up.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful feeling. I know with my coach, when I first worked with him, I really thought there were a lot of broken, not okay elements in me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the messages I got from him right away was, I know you're okay, even if you don't yet. And we're gonna sit with that, but I know you're okay. And that was just so helpful to me. It
Yes.
just relaxed me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know now you've got a waiting list for clients, and so the activity of getting clients is not first on your screen. But in the early days, when you decided to be a full-time professional coach, what was the get reaching out and getting clients process like for you?
Yeah. With I was working with, I like saying, like, I coached really, really, really poorly from 2009 to like 2013 or so, like just hot mess.
Really?
Like whatever I could do wrong, I did
I have a
wrong.
hard time believing that.
Yes, like just, well, in terms of the business side, like
Oh,
the
I see.
programs, I had clients that I loved working with and they loved working with me, but it was like a one-off $35 to $100 a session, just kind of all over the place. And when I started working, I worked with a coach before Michelle that was helpful. And then I started working with Michelle Bauman. Um, and, and it, one of the things that I loved, and it was such a pivotal moment for me, it was, she told me, I was kind of fixated on my niche, my message, my brand, my website, my this, my that. And she just said this thing like, can you just drop all of that and do nothing but be willing to serve whoever's present? Like, and what I really heard in that was like, I need to stop thinking about myself, like get myself off my mind and get into service. And it was so relaxing to just drop that. And when I let go of that, I feel like new ideas came in, new insights around how to reach out and who to reach out to. But this is another huge question that comes up around coaching teens. It's like, how do you enroll teenagers, or how do you even find them? And the way that I did it, it was two things I did. One of them was I talked to everybody that I already knew and loved and had relationships with. Not them, not teenagers, but people, human, other people. And I just said, like my brother, my mom, my aunt, like anybody I could think of, my friends, hey, like I'm really wanting to work with teens. Do you know anybody that has a teenager that might need support in the way that I provide it? And here's kind of what that looks like. And I would share a little bit about that, that it wasn't accountability coaching, it wasn't homework coaching, it wasn't this traditional looking teenage coaching. It was much more holistic and kind of, uh, anybody that knows me knows there's a spiritual intent, or there's something else going on. So that was one way, and that in just doing that for a day, like one day of doing that with as many people as I could, generated a lot of conversations.
Mm.
And a lot of conversations that kind of went nowhere, but several of them led to then conversations with the team. And I also think this is the same thing I coach the coaches I work with in doing. It's like, if you know nobody to work with, talk to people that know you and love you and tell them what you're up to and why. And then the other thing that I did is I would talk about the work that I was doing with teens everywhere I went. So I just had like this little radar up that was like, I'd go to, my husband was a volleyball coach for a long time. I'd go to the games and sit on the benches and just listen to the parents. And if they said something like, oh, she's so stressed, my daughter's so stressed today, I might look at her and be like, hey, I love helping teens that are stressed. My name's Aila. Do you want what's going on with her? And I would spend a lot of those games connecting with parents around me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And there are a lot of coaches at the start who are very reluctant. Sometimes people come into the ACS and they have some clients and they've been coaching, but they say, I have a hard time even saying I'm a coach.
Yeah.
Uh, and when you work with coaches, how do you work with coaches who are reluctant to do what you did at the beginning? Be very open everywhere about what your work is and how it works. How do you work with coaches?
Yeah. Well, I was that way when I first started, so I can relate to it. And one of the things that I like um, coaching coaches around, but also anybody, including teenagers, is it doesn't have to look like I do it, or like Steve Chandler does it, or Carolyn. It can look, it can feel good to you. It can look, and what I mean by that is like there's a way into that that will feel natural, and it might be about exploring what that looks like, and taking away anything that you've seen done, and getting in touch with like, why are you coaching, or why do you want to work with people, getting really in touch with that, and letting the idea of then how do I share about it kind of come from that place, where it might be going to, I created a client once at the dog park, And I feel like I didn't even mention I was a coach. It was just me talking with this woman. She meant her husband had recently died. I mentioned, I started talking about my baby that had died, and I shared a book with her that was really helpful for me. And it was this very natural process where at some point I sent her the book. She read the book. We talked again at the dog park. She asked me if we could talk again later. At the end of that later conversation, I said, hey, this is actually what I do for a living. Like, this isn't this isn't anything unusual for me. This is the work I do. Do you want to hear how I work with my clients? And I think about that as kind of this example of where I didn't go in saying like, I'm a coach. Do you want help with that? And
Yeah.
I think on any given day, I might show up to that moment with a person a little bit differently, but I'm not afraid of helping. And I think that's my come from. It's like I'm willing to say what occurs to me in the moment without fear. This is another one I talk about a lot with myself, but with other coaches. Is like I'm really willing to fail. And what I mean by fail is like I'm willing for it to go poorly. Like I am willing, and that's been a muscle I've built over time. But I feel like if I'm willing to clunk my way through a moment with somebody, I might be helpful. I might actually make a difference. And that's what I really want. And I'm okay knowing that it doesn't have to go perfect every time. It doesn't. Like I've had the worst feeling sessions that have been like mind blowing for people. Like, oh, that felt like a train wreck to me, but great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that happen too. Like, oh my gosh, they'll never talk to me again. And I get an email saying, my life has changed. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you never know. You try stuff and you see how you can help. If you stay with, I want to help.
Yeah.
How can I help? Even ask them, what would help you right now? Instead of trying to sound like, well, I know what would help you. I'm a coach.
Yes. Yeah.
It can really be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in our final few minutes, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about Michelle. In this program, I'm going to share a couple conversations I had with Michelle,
Mm.
and she was a wonderful, beautiful coach, and she died way too soon. What was her role in your practice getting better? What role did she play in your life as a successful coach?
She I feel like she changed kind of everything for me, or I was ready, but um, she was such a force. And I'll say also working with you, I can say this applies completely to the influence you've had on me as well. Um, but with Michelle, she didn't care how much I didn't believe in myself. Like she didn't care if I came to a session and I said, I don't think I'm good enough. She'd be like, okay, but what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to create? What do you want to focus on? And I think prior to working with her, I was really, I feel like I was self-absorbed in it with a good intention. It's like I wanted to keep getting better and better so I could serve people better and better. But it was just this like delay tactic. And I don't know if I would have ever got there. I don't know if I would have ever really decided I can do this as I am right now. I don't need to heal anymore. I don't need to learn. I mean, I love learning and growing. I love all of that, but I don't need to in order to be in service to people. I can start right now going for what I really want, which was at that time, it was I wanted to work with fewer clients in longer programs. And I felt like there was this huge hurdle personally to overcome. And like each session to session, dozens of emails later, it was this constant message from Michelle. It was like, nope, we're not focusing on your issues. We're focusing on your strengths and on your willingness and on your capability. And again, I feel like that's something that I've received from you over and over again, especially in the very beginning when we started working together. I can remember coming to our sessions, Steve, and saying something like, I don't know, I don't really feel like I can do it. And you would say something like, well, are you willing to try? Or, excuse me, are you willing to run an experiment? I was like, yes, I'm willing. uh, Way before I feel ready, but okay. And I think that's the thing that, again, Michelle catapulted in me, that willingness. Like, I'm willing to serve even when I don't feel like I should be allowed to, because I'm still a work in progress.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. And now looking back, uh, being a work in progress, even announcing to your client, I'm still a work in progress, is a great thing for a
Yeah.
client to hear and to know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
well, we're unfortunately running out of time. I've got one more question.
Sure.
If you just had one thing to say as advice or recommendation to someone starting in this world of coaching, trying to build a practice, already knows how to coach, had some training in that area, what would you tell somebody new to the practice of coaching? Something you wish you had known when you started.
Yeah. Uh, Two things, and I think they go hand in hand, but it's like coach as much as possible. Like, just keep that going. And I think keeping it going is a function of letting workshops that don't fill, sessions that feel bad, proposals that are clunky and weird, like letting that stuff be okay, and not this indication that I should stop, that I should slow down, that I need to go like work on it, but letting that be just like a part of the puzzle. You know, I love your work, Steve, so much of what you share. It's like the coaching profession isn't this unique profession in that like we don't have bad days or hard days or things don't go wrong. Wrong. It's like it's to let all of it be allowed on the path. And I did have an insight at some point that I realized like, wow, I keep waiting for the feedback to like give me permission to keep going, instead of no, like no more feedback. In a way, if I want to keep going, no matter how much I feel like I'm failing, I get to keep going. And period. That there's my billings, they matter and they don't at the beginning. I mean, they matter and they don't. It's like, it's not to use anything as an indicator of whether or not I should be doing this if it's in me that I want to do it,
Yeah.
and to just keep coaching, keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Now, I did think I said that was the last question, but I had one more.
Sure.
Are you still writing a book about coaching teenagers? Is that still a project? And if so,
Yeah.
where's the book?
Yeah, actually, I just talked to Chris, editor, Chris Nelson, yesterday, and it needs a conclusion.
Oh,
And that's kind of, he's going to send it to me in the next few days to reread and look at and maybe add things to it. But I'm about to go on maternity leave, and my plan, if I can have a plan, is to kind of wrap it up in the next couple months
oh,
and
that's
get
great.
get
I
that
can't
out.
wait to read it. I really am looking. I hope you'll send it to me.
I will. Yeah. Yeah, it's
All
been a
right,
really fun process.
cool. All right. Well, thank you, Isla. Thank you so much for giving your time. What you do for this profession is amazing, and I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Steve. Likewise. Thank you.
You're welcome.